Houston, what you're seeing is the Western Hemisphere. Looking at the top is the North Pole. In the center, just lower to the center, is South America. All the way down to Cape Horn. I can see Baja California and the southwestern part of the United States. There's a big fog cloud bank going northeast. Covers a lot of the Gulf of Mexico, going up to the eastern part of the United States. And it appears now that the east coast is cloudy. I can see clouds over parts of Mexico. Some parts of Central America are clear. And we can also see the light spot of the subsolar plane on the light side of the Earth.
So here we have some flipbook animation, and as you can see, the spacecraft is flying down to Earth. It's actually crashing into the tree. It's hitting the tree and all the pieces get torn apart. And also the spaceship is getting torn apart at the impact. You can see the flying pieces in the image here. And the tree is actually behaving very, very interesting. You can see it's waving around and the leaves are kind of accelerated from the impact. And I will show you now how this setup was created. And always keep in mind, this is an asset you can order on Digital Alchemist. And try out your own spaceship or whatever you want destruction. So let's get started here. At the moment I'm in the simulation DOP in the dynamics operator, and we have here the tree which is interacting down into a bullet solver. Bullet solver is a very fast solver resolution solution. It's mostly used in video games nowadays, and has also found the way into Houdini. Here you can see the bullet and the brain. So this bullet solver is driving the static object from the tree here, and we have here the packed object from the spacecraft, and all this is getting into a constrained network, and this is pretty much where the magic is happening. So the constrained network is holding the branches and all the leaves here together, and when the spaceship is, or the object of your desire is crashing into the tree, it's hit by gravity. And we have also a glue network here with the string of 20. You can adjust the strength of the tree, how much it's responding to the impact of the object, of the impact object. And this ground plane here is the collision ground. So the collision ground now is actually infinite, so you can shatter on a high field here, and everything is going into this merge node and then into the output now. So here's the setup. You can specify hit objects. For our example, we have some spheres here, so you can crash any given geometry into the tree object. We're also planning to implement speed tree trees into this asset, that you were able to load any tree from speed tree into Houdini and shatter it accordingly to the setup. So we have here the tree model. This tree model ships free with the asset, and it's going to later set the scale, some transformations. Then there are a lot of points scattered which go into a Voronoi fracture. The Voronoi fracture pretty much gives you the ability to fragment objects inside Houdini. It's one of the main core nodes used by Houdini to fracture objects, which is later on then transformed again, giving some color. Then it's going to be assembled in an assemble node with all the leaves, and later getting into the constraint network. The constraint network glues all pieces together. Here you can see the constraint network. It's very, very dense, and it has almost every leaf inside the connection here. It's like a spider web, and it's holding the pieces together and breaks and glues them accordingly to the impact object, which here in our case is the spacecraft. On this attribute wrangle here we can see some interesting vex happening. Here you can see you can use this to customize the properties, and you have a lot of control how this tree is breaking, how this tree is torn apart. And we have here the strength parameter, how strong everything is clustering and breaking. And this is then going out into a merge node with glue attributes and with the pin attributes, which pins them together actually. So you also can assign some strength to the branches here. And when I now take the spaceship and go inside the simulation DOP, then we can specify here. So in the simulation node you can adjust here the RBD packed objects. RBD is rigid body dynamics. In our case it's rigid body destruction. And when I offset the bypass, you can see our sphere here. And you can put any object inside this simulation that you need, and we have our spaceship here, and the acceleration of the spaceship is done by the velocity tab here. Velocity is accelerating the object over time, and we have -10 in x, y, z, so it's moving forward and simultaneously moving downwards. Excuse me. And I will now enter some higher value here, like 55, and will also translate the position of the spaceship to something more interesting. You also can rotate the spaceship here in the initial state like you want. So now let's have a look here. Okay, I will now do some calculations, and let's see how this is interacting with our tree here, and how it's getting this tree behaving. Just for your idea creation for a scene, you could have a lot of trees here. You could have a forest, and the forests could and the trees in the forest, they could move by the wind, and suddenly the sky opens and the spacecraft punches down the atmosphere and into the forest, and with this asset you were able to to do the destruction when something hits a forest or something like that. You can multiply this or scatter this several times, so your possibilities are very unlimited. So let's see what the calculation is doing for us. So I have calculated some frames, and as you might expect, this is a total destruction here. The spaceship is coming down from the sky, and it's pretty much falling
1 minute, 10 seconds and counting. We still are go at this time.
falling into the forest. It gets torn apart.
Coming up
You also can calculate the amount, how heavy the object is destroyed here, but you can also see the tree here
T-minus 50
is pretty much scattered all over the place.
spacecraft at
Everything is pretty much reacting and interacting.
T-minus
Very dynamic setup, and you can assign materials to your tree, to your object, and it's getting scattered all over the place here.
21 seconds and counting, we have completed our power transfer. The Saturn 1B launch vehicle, which now weighs 1.3 million pounds, is ready to go. Coming up on the 10 seconds.
And it's a very massive impact, always depending how large the object is or how fast actually the object is. All factors and parameters and values that define the look of this kind of shot of the asset. And as you can see here, there's nothing left from this tree that got hit. And I will also now make a flip book with the $RF start and $RF end. We use the current viewport, the objects which are currently visible, and I start now. So here you can see how the spaceship is crashing onto the ground, a very dramatic shot. Yeah, and the resolution is a bit messy, but you can get the idea what you can do with this asset. You also could make the tree just moving in the wind. Everything is already set up in this preset here for Houdini. It's Houdini 17 actually what I'm using here. And I will show you now how this looks in a still frame rendered, just to give you some idea what you can achieve with this kind of preset from Digital Alchemist. So okay, pause this. And do some other calculations. Before I start rendering a frame, here is another great example for a cool effect you can achieve with this kind of asset. I just have hidden the spaceship, and when I now scrub here through the timeline, you can see how it's torn apart. So you can use this for any kind of explosions or blasts or detonations or stuff like that, where something is creating a lot of energy in an explosive way. And the amount of shattering here can also be adjusted from the trunk down here. And you see all the leaves are falling down. It's very, very cool setup with all the leaves and constraint networks. Constraint networks are actually the magic behind every good destruction, because everything in the real world behaves like a kind of frequency when objects get hit by a certain amount of energy. Stuff breaks and things get glued together in a way, stay together. So you have, for example, here the pieces breaking apart. And you really should be interested in destruction and stuff like that in Houdini, then it's always recommended to read some interesting science books about energy loss and energy creation, energy transmission, and how energy is behaving in a certain system, like wood or concrete, or even an alien technology, how energy is behaving there. Okay, I set up something special here. So let's do that from the far distance. Okay, just for this quick demonstration here, I go up to the shelf tool and pick up some Skylight, and immediately the scene is getting illuminated. So let's set up a Skylight. Oh yeah, that's nice. So here we have the sunlight, we have ray traced shadows. The Skylight is always creating an environment light for you. This environment light is illuminating the scene indirect. So light is bouncing on and off from the object, is losing energy, and with the loss of energy it's taking color information out of your object, because light and this what we see is also information, is some kind of energy, some kind of frequency actually. And this is what indirect light is doing. It's having an illumination kind of impact to your scene. And to do some rendering, you go here on the edit button, on the render button, create render node. I create a Mantra node. Mantra is the render engine inside of Houdini, shipping by Houdini. And I will set this to my physically based rendering, PBR. PBR is a way of how material should actually react in the real world. PBR, you can Google PBR. When you Google for PBR models, you get very realistic models with cool materials and interesting reflections and stuff like that. So I will use this here for rendering. For the pixel samples, this defines how many pixels are sampled through the engine, through Mantra. We have 3 by 3, so every 3 pixel we have a sample. I will put the noise level to 0.001 and do a sample log to create a more interesting image. I'm using all processors. In the render tab here we have a tile size of the rendering bucket of 16. And let's see how this render looks in the render view. I change here from the camera view to our camera and going to hit the render button. So as you can see, I'm using the preview option of Houdini, and we'll turn this off now. And it's now doing the rendering here. Maybe we put the 1 second. So maybe I'm using the wrong render. Where is it? I want to use not Gaussian, but the other one, Catmo-Rom. Catmo-Rom is a very sharp renderer. Opacity filtering. So here, when you go into the Mantra here on this little button with the arrow, you can pretty much use the pixel filter. Specifies a pixel filter used to combine subpixel samples, which means it's in a subpixel manner to generate the value for the single pixel. The filter is normally specified as a filter type, followed by an X and Y filter width in pixels. To blur the image, increase the filter width. So we will use the good NVIDIA Optics denoiser now. and see what this is creating for us. As you can see, it's getting more crisp now. Maybe the record engine here is destroying some of the quality, but I will also change the resolution of the image. You go on the camera here, on the render view, and here on this little button you can specify your render resolution. You can also enter any resolution you need for your object or project, and I will use full app 2K with 2048 and 556, and let's see what this is doing for us. When you click here in the image with a double click, you can specify the render region and make your render more entertaining. When you have some sad day, you can make the render more entertaining. Clicking here, and you get the areas you need to render out. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial about some of the assets you can find on the digitalalchemist.com webpage, and we also hope to bring more and better and more advanced assets to you as a producer or independent filmmaker or whatever field you are in. Yeah, it's almost done rendering here, and you can see now that it's looking not that bad. You also could add here interior detail into the fragments, but for this presentation here, I think it's okay. When you have questions, just write some comments. Feel free to contact us. Feel free to subscribe when you really like the Hive. And thanks for watching. Look forward to the next episodes here on FX Hive. And I wish all of you a wonderful time. And now with Christmas approaching closer day by day, I wish you a nice pre-Christmas time. Take care and see you soon. Thanks for watching.